Hi, everyone. Today is going to be sort of a basic session on React, and then we're going to just look at some issues that a student's having, and then see if we can actually figure out some of the debugging there. I'm just waiting for the app to install, but I'm going to go and share my screen so long. Okay, so this is just installing a new React app. So we're starting completely from scratch, and then we're just going to look at some key concepts. If any of you are able to give me a screenshot of MA1, please give it to me. Actually, wait, I think somebody might be helping me. I haven't got my phone with me. I left it at my wife's work, and because of that, I can't actually get in because I need the one login password. If there's anything that any of you need, like you want to ask in the session, you can just jump in straight away. I have no issue with that. And you can just ask in chat, or you can turn your microphone on and you can ask. But don't wait towards the end. Like, rather ask while we're busy working with it. And if it's something that you're confused about, or if you don't know about, then I will discuss it. I know React quite well, so I'm the right person to ask Norif if you do want questions on React. Been working with it for many years and use it daily. And I love working with it. So please, like, don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so we've got our app here, and it's installed using Create React App, and I'm going to use VS Code to open it. Okay, so this is going to be our brand new app. So npm run start to get it going. I'll just zoom in a tiny bit. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly talk about some basic concepts about React. Like, I believe you're on MA1, so you at your first week of learning about React. Is that correct? Can someone just confirm that in chat? If you all are on just like the beginning of React, I want to know sort of where you are, so what information I should try and cover. Okay, am I right in saying that it's okay? So just have React set up. Okay, cool. So then this is going to be really, really helpful to you. I'm actually going to talk about some basic concepts in React and sort of try and make things a lot easier for you to understand. Because when you first work with it, it seems really complicated. Like when I started learning it, I found it overwhelming. But it actually is quite simple at the end of the day. Once you actually wrap your head around it, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize it was actually that simple. Okay, so I'm just going to just get some more space here so we can work with it. And just resize this. Okay, so this is React. And what React is it's a UI library, not a framework. It's a library. It's basically like a UI library with one of the main features being able to have things update automatically. So your UI will update automatically. So for example, if you have something like a counter on the screen with like a button, and you click that button, that counter is going to go up. And to try and program that in normal JavaScript is very problematic, because you need to update. You have to have like a render function that's updating all of the different parts of the DOM, where React is going to automatically handle that for you. One of the coolest features about React is the way that it handles updates to the page. So I'll show you what React is actually doing. We have to take this out again. Actually, wait, let's keep it like that and then make it full screen. Okay. Cool. So when you're working with React and you do something that changes, what React has done, it's gone and memorized everything that you've got here in your DOM. Okay, so it memorizes all of this, but it doesn't. It basically stores it in memory. So then when you do an update, it's going to go and check inside of your DOM here. It's going to see that, okay, wait, you maybe changed the text of this P tag, and it checks that you using its memory. It's stored this as a virtual DOM inside of its memory. And then it goes and it checks that virtual DOM with the one that's recently updated. And for example, like this edit might have been changed to a 2. And so then what it does is it goes and updates just this node over here, deletes it, and it adds a new one. And it doesn't have to go and update the entire DOM itself. because that's a very expensive operation. So if you normally have like a render function, like when you're learning at Norif, you will target like a div, and then you go and you replace that whole div every time. And that's an expensive operation. So I'm gonna grab the assignment here. Just give me a second. So I know exactly assignment that you're looking for. Well, I can't get into that either because I need, never mind. I was sending my phone for GitHub. It really sucks. But anyways, so yeah, so what Reactor is going to do is it's going to go and update this node and only this node by doing a comparison of a virtual DOM that's stored. So it's storing all of this as a virtual DOM, and then it's doing comparisons against that, which is very quick because that's stored in memory now. It's stored in the memory of the computer. It's not having to do like a comparison of the actual DOM itself. And the DOM is the document object model. It's basically all these nodes. And that's a really, really quick sort of operation for React to do. And then what I'm actually talking about now is an interview question. So if it's good to sort of try and absorb what I'm trying to tell you. It is like one of the top 5 React questions is when you're trying to get like a job at a really, really good place, they will ask you, what is one of the key benefits of React? And that's the virtual DOM, or they will say, what is the virtual DOM? Okay, so let's jump back into this. Oops. I have to just bring it out again so I can get that. There we go. Right, so React is going to be updating these DOM elements automatically. So let's have a look at how React is actually working here. So the first thing is that components. Okay, so you can see there's a function here. Our components in React are functions, and they can only return one thing. Like when you've got a function, so let's just create a function here. So I say, got a function and call it add numbers. Okay, and we pass in A and B, and then we would return A plus B. Okay, so that's just a basic function. Let's see if we can actually run it like this. Okay, so if I run it, you can see that we're getting 30, which is correct because it's 10 plus 20. Okay, so when you've got a function like this, you can actually only return one value. You can't have 2 values getting returned like this. You can't return twice. I mean, you could have like an if statement that says, if A is greater than B, return that, else return that. Okay, so then this is a way that you are returning at different times, but they are not returning together. You can't return together like this. If you actually have a look, I'll zoom in here, you'll see that it's much darker. It's faded. When something isn't able to get reached, or if you're using a parameter that's unused, you'll see that it becomes faded. This is faded over here because it's unused. And over here, it's saying to us that unreachable code detected, because this return will run and it'll break out of this function. So then this function is done after that return is run. So functions can only return one value. You could actually return an array which has got other values, but it's still only one value getting returned. And the same thing as an object, you could return an object like this. But it's still only one item that's getting returned. It's one sort of value that's getting returned. It's just that's a complex value. So why that's important is going to be, it's important in React because React has got functions, right? Our components are functions at the end of the day. Like, don't think it's some kind of magical, kind of weird, really cool magical thing. React components are just functions at the end of the day. Oh, awesome. Somebody actually gave me the MA. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So why is this important? We've got this one div here, right? I'm actually gonna take out a lot of this code and just put something like a P that says hello. Okay. If I was to try and return this and that is a problem. Because what you're doing here is you're trying to return 2 things at once. This is now one thing that's getting returned, and this is another thing that's getting returned. And it's sort of one of the biggest gotchas people have in React. So I'll show you what the error is going to say here. So just zoom in here. Okay, so there's the error there at the bottom. So scroll down, it says adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want to use JSX fragment? Okay, so the issue, yeah, I mean, that is a bit cryptic. But what it's saying is that this element is adjacent to this element. They're next to each other. They're not nested. You know, if this was inside of this, like inside of this div, then it's nested. Let me just save it so that's formatted. So this is now nested inside of this div here. But if it's next to it, two things at once. So we were trying to return A plus B, and you were trying to return A plus B at the same time. You can't do this. A function can only return one thing. So that is why this is actually breaking you. Is you trying to return more than one thing. I know the return is on the outside here, but this is what the principle is behind all of this, is that you can't have your two elements next to each other like this. If you want to have two elements next to each other like this, what you need to do is you need to go and use a fragment. This is the shorthand for doing it. But it's actually, what it actually is, it's called react.fragment. Yeah. Okay. So I've sort of jumped the gun here by showing you what React fragment is, but it's one of the, one of the students asked me to discuss errors. So I want to go and just discuss probably the most prevalent error that you're going to come across is trying to do this. Okay. So if you do, in the case that you do need to return two elements next to each other like this, you have to use a React fragment. Usually you shouldn't actually have to do this. There are some use cases, like if you're doing just a bunch of list items. So for example, if we just had, I'll show you a trick here. I'm going to say ol r, and I'm going to do times 5. And you see that, yeah, where it's showing me this. It's showing me it's actually going to create 5 ol r's. Okay, so it's ol r times 5. I push tab, and then we've got 5 ol r's. I'm just going to add your entry and save it. Okay, so in this case, this is like the one of the many sort of one of the few use cases where you do need to use a React fragment. But most of the time, you should not need to use a React fragment. It's just that I want you to be aware of this, so that in case you do run into this error. So let's just delete this and save, so we can get this error again. And that error is parsing error. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? If you are running into this, I would worry that you're maybe not doing something correctly, because in this case, this should maybe be wrapped in a UL, right? Because we have an unordered list. That's what, by the way, if you don't know, this UL stands for unordered list, because remember that it's stars. So not stars, it's the sort of the bullet points. Whereas an ordered list, which is OL, is going to have numbers. So like an ordered list is going to be when you've got like a recipe to follow or directions to somewhere. So let's just save it and refresh. Oh, did I kill the server? Sorry, just give me a second. Looks like the server died, but I'll just start it here. Sorry about that. Okay, so an ordered list has got numbers, whereas an unordered list has got just the asterisk, which is a star. Okay, so you can see here that I didn't actually need to use a fragment. The issue was that I didn't have the URL around it. But so there are some use cases where you need to use a fragment, but you shouldn't. It should be like 1 out of 100. If you haven't used fragments, then there's most likely something that's wrong. And you should have maybe just had a div on the outside. So you could have had a div here on the outside as a parent, and then that problem goes away. Okay, so just wanted to jump onto that one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some basics about React and how it all sort of works. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to create a component. Well, first you should have a folder called components, and then inside here I'm going to create a component called just trying to think now what to call it. Just call it list. Okay. And I'm actually going to create another component as well, just so that I don't like it when it sits on the folder like this. So I'm going to just create another one, just call it about. Okay, but I'm just going to work with the list. Okay, so in here, so I hope I've got your name right, Veronica or Veronica. Please let me know if I don't have it correct. I really do want to get the names correct. So you've asked, but should we use fragments instead of creating a new node like a div, right? I don't think you should use fragments most of the time. It's fragments are for really rare occasions that you need to have two things adjacent to each other. But most of the time when you are building something like a component, like let's say I'm going to build this list component, you would want to have it in a div. It should actually be in its own div. So most of the time it should probably be wrapped in a div, I would say, because you're going to probably use a flex container anyways to position that content. So I'm going to jump on that question again in a moment. So when it comes to creating a component, by the way, I'm going to be moving fast. My power goes off. In South Africa, we have load shedding where they turn the power off, and that's at 4 o'clock. So I might be moving a bit quick, but this is being recorded so you can watch it again. Okay, so when it comes to creating a component, I'm going to show you what they do in a production environment. So places where I've worked at, where it's companies that make millions of dollars. So I'm showing you stuff that is battle tested, I know is really, really good code and the way that people do it. Okay, so you don't have to do it this way, but it is a very strongly opinionated way that people do things. But there are other ways to do things. But what I'm showing you now, you know that this is definitely what is used at a workplace at very professional places. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do here is you're going to go and create a new file, and you're going to call it index.jsx. Not just .js, you use .jsx, because what you want is to have a separation of normal JavaScript and React components. At the end of the day, there is no difference between JS and JSX. In the past, there used to be, when there used to be like compilers and like Babel on that would go and you'd need to have a .jsx extension for it to know that it's React, but you don't need to do that anymore. This is now purely so that I might have a utils file here, so I'll actually just create a folder. I'll create a file here called utils, or what did I call it, .com. And then say we had something here that was a function that converted the currency, so or format currency, and then it would take in a value, and then it just would say return value.toFixed to. Okay, so let's just say that, and then you'd export this function. Okay, so now you can go and import this and use it throughout your code. I'm going to drag it down here for now. So now when I was to look at this file, I would immediately know that this has only got JavaScript in it. It's got no React content. And if I look at this file, yeah, without even going in the file, I can see that it's got JSX. I immediately know that's a React component, and I need to deal with it like a React component. So you want to separate your normal JavaScript and your React components. Okay, so that's how I got .jsx here. The other thing is an index. Instead of me calling it list.jsx, we call it index, because it makes it easier to link the file. Okay, so I'll just give you an example here. I'm going to go back to app, get rid of that. Let's get this to the top. Now, if I was to import this component, I would say import list. Well, actually, let's do it when it's first got list.js so you can see the difference. Okay, so I'm going to do list.js and ignore my magic that I'm about to do here. I'll go about this in a moment. Okay, so if I was to go and say, if I wanted to import this component, I'm going to say import list from ./components/list. And then I need to say /list again. Okay, and now this component's going to work. I can go and I'll add this component in here. And you can see here's the list. And I'm saying, yeah, let me call it list component. Okay, so by having a list.jsx, we have to import this twice. It's not imported twice, but you have to list this twice. You have to write it twice. If you called this index.jsx, you don't need to go and do that anymore. Now, instead to import it, and I'm not going to just go and delete now. I actually want to use the autocomplete. So I'm going to say ./components/list, and that is it. Nothing else. Okay, so this is now a lot more nicer than list-list. Okay, this is just cleaner than doing it twice like this. Now, there's the other reason for doing it like this, which it doesn't matter whether you actually did a list or not, but you would go and if you had tests, which you probably haven't learned about React tests, but you do something like index.test.jsx, and then your styling, you could do index.styles.jsx, or .style or .styled with a D. You can now have this sort of your stuff grouped together. And just by the way, this is called, oh my word, I'm going to forget now. Something. I'll remember in a moment. Let me not get stuck there. Called co-location. Sorry, that's what it's called. So this is called co-location, or co-locating your content, so that all of your things are together at once, instead of having like a separate test folder and a separate styles folder. And then if you want to move a component around, if I wanted to move this component somewhere else, it's all in one file here. It's all in one folder. I can just drag this and just move it to somewhere else. Okay. So I'm going to go and get rid of all of this. So Control K, Control W closes everything. Command K, Command W does the same thing. I'm going to get rid of these because I don't want that. And we're going to start working on what a component is. I will be dropping some really sort of like cool tips and tricks. They might be a little bit too advanced where you are now, but in case it does stick, I'll give you the opportunity to learn these things. Okay, so this is now a React component. Okay, this is really all it is that it's a function and it's returning this HTML-like syntax. Okay, so it's just like how we write HTML, where it's a div. And then if we wanted to do like an image, we do it just like an image. But the thing is that at the end of the day, this actually is not HTML. This is called JSX, which stands for JavaScript XML, I think. Double check. Stands for JavaScript XML. Yep. So what this actually is a syntactic sugar, which is syntactic sugar means, and I want to mention it so you get exposure to it. It means that it's sort of a neater, nicer way of doing something. Like if you have a for loop, you got your for loop that goes like this: for let I is equal to that, I is less than 10, I plus plus. And then if you were to use for each, this is syntactic sugar. It's doing the same thing as this, but it's a neater way of doing it. So that's what JSX is doing, is that it's a neater way of writing our React code. So I'm actually going to show you now what it actually looks like to write a React component. So to create a React component, what's actually happening behind the scenes is you're actually doing this. You're saying react.create element. And then inside here, you put the element that you want. Then inside here, you need to put in your props. So something like, I don't know, is admin true? And then over here, you put your children. And this is how you create a React element. Then let's say I wanted to put a div inside of this. Let's say hello world. How this is going to look is that you're going to create, well, this will be our first div. Then our next div, which we'll maybe call nested div. So you've got a react.create element div. We won't have props this time, but then the child, this needs to go in, yeah, nested div. Okay, so this is how you would actually have to write React components. This is how you actually supposed to need to write React. But this is just hard. It's not intuitive. It's difficult to understand what's actually happening. So what we do then instead is we use JSX, which is this HTML code that you see it. So what's actually happening when you're writing this div, it's actually doing this behind the scenes. It's doing all of this for you when it goes and you write your code. Okay, so JSX is making our lives a lot easier by letting us write this HTML-like syntax. It's not exactly the same, and it's not HTML at the end of the day. It's JSX. And bonus points if you can kind of remember this type of stuff, because in an interview you will definitely impress people if you can go and explain this. Like I'm teaching you stuff that you usually won't actually find. Okay, so yeah, so this is what's actually happening behind the scenes when it comes to creating divs and elements in React. Okay, so this is our basic code. We've got this component list, and if we wanted to use it somewhere, let's go and bring this file back here. We use it like this. So we use it with a closing tag, and a self-closing tag at the end. Okay. Are there any questions at this stage, just regarding what we have covered? No. Okay. So this is how we call a component. We import it like this. Import list from so and so, and then we can just, I don't know, insert it like this. We can render it out by just using it like an HTML element. Okay. Now the next part of React is props. And those are values that we want to actually pass into a list, or sorry, into component. So let's say I was to change this to, I'm actually going to change this to something called greeting. This would be a better example. I'm going to call this greeting. Save it. It doesn't matter that it hasn't been changed here because we're doing a default export. And when you're doing an import from a default export, you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to call it this. You can call it whatever you want. But it's still not good though that this isn't been changed. This hasn't been changed. That should be greeting. Okay. So now we're going to go and change this to say, hello. You can say hello, Martin. Okay. All right. So this component now goes and says, hello, Martin. But that is not very useful at all because you would need your app would have to just have users called Martin. If anybody else comes along like Ola and they want to sign up, we're going to have to say, sorry, your name's on Martin, so you can't actually use our website. That's what's going to happen here because it only greets a single person. And that's in programming, that's not good. It means we've hard coded something in and we can't have that. We need it to be dynamic. So what React allows you to do is you can pass values into a component. And then they're available like arguments and parameters. Let me just do this. Yeah, I'm just going to just draw something out in a moment, but let's just carry on for now. So you can pass a value into a component, and then it'll be available inside of the component in its parentheses. Just like when you've got a function and you pass a value into a function and you get to use it, that's the same thing here. Okay, so we will be drawing in a moment. So I'll show you how that works, is that over here, where your component is getting called, you can go and type in a property. So what can we say? A first name. And this isn't a built-in property for this that exists in React. This is just me just putting this here. And you can call this whatever you want. If you want to call it, you're more than welcome to call it that. You can call this whatever you actually want to call it. So I'm going to call this first name and I'm going to have it as Martin. Okay. Now, if we go to our component, in here is a props. And this should be called props. Over here, we can call this whatever we want. But when we actually in the component, you should call this props. Okay. Now, if I console log props, you're going to see that this value exists in this props over here. Okay. So I'm going to save. Let's inspect. Oh, I can't reach it. I have to zoom out. There we go. No. Okay, so we've zoomed in. Sorry, we've logged it out. Okay, so you can see here when I log out props, it's got this first name of Martin. If I was to go and change it to Muhammad over there, so let's change to Muhammad. I hope I'm spelling it right. Muhammad, that's correct. And save. Now you can see it's Muhammad that's actually passing through here. Okay, so this value is getting passed into this props over here. Okay, so I'm just going to screenshot this so I could just sort of show you what I'm talking about. Was it not pasting? Okay, let me just take another screenshot. Okay, cool. Right, so which is the pen? There we go. Okay, so just got to go and make sure that I'm on red so you can see what I'm doing. I am. Okay, so over here, we've got our first name, Muhammad, and that's getting passed into the props. Okay, so it's over here. So this now exists as a property in props. Prop stands for properties. So this is a property in props, okay? And you can add whatever you want. It doesn't have to be first name. It can be last name. It can be anything you want. So let's actually just go and add another thing here. So maybe let's add module, and we'll call it JS frameworks. And let's maybe add in is admin, and we'll make that false. Okay, and I'm going to save it. I'm also just going to clean this up so that it's all on one screen. It's going to keep doing that. Okay, I'll move this over then. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to save it, and now we're going to go and just refresh. You don't have to refresh, but I didn't want all that other nonsense there. And now you can see here that we've actually got first name is Mohammed. It's cut off, but it's there. That means it is admin is false. It's a Boolean, and then you can see this. It's actually got this module, JS frameworks. So you can add all of these values into a component, and then they are part of a component. Okay, and then you can access it. So over here, I can go and say const first name is equal to props.firstname. I can say const module is equal to props.module. I'm just going to use those two now. And now this is now where I can actually go and use this. Okay, so we've now got these values here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to console log them. So console log first name, then module, save it. Okay, so you can see here we're logging first name, Mohammed, and we've got module JS frameworks. Okay, so they're coming through. Now you can use these in your components. So to use it in your component, you simply go and use the curly braces. That's all. That's all you need to do. And then inside of this, you can put your any variable that you want. Okay. So if I actually look now at what React is rendering out, it's saying hello, Mohammed. Okay. And now I'll actually go and say you are on the module and save it. So hello, Mohammed, you are on the JS frameworks module. Okay. So that's how you can pass the value into components and how you can consume a value. This over here is actually, you can actually run a whole bunch of code in here. I don't recommend it, but you can actually run like a ternary operator if you wanted to. So we could say like, if is admin is false, sorry, if admin is false, sorry, if it's true, we're going to go and say, I don't know, is admin. And if it's false, we'll say not admin. And I haven't got is admin yet, so let me just actually grab that. Yeah, so hello, not admin, you are on the so-and-so module. So you can actually, this is, React is seeing this, these sort of 2 points here as a place for you to write code. You shouldn't write a lot of code in here. I'm just trying to show you that you can actually run your expressions in here, so that you sort of understand why it is that a variable is going to work. And it's because React is going to see this as code that must run inside of here. It's not going to see it as like text. It's going to be code that runs inside of this. And so that's why you can go and just drop a name in here and it's going to work. So first name, and there we go. It's going to work. Okay. So that's the basics of sort of how a component works with props. I don't think I'm going to look at state right now. What I'm going to do next is, so that we actually covered in time, I want to, there's a student gave me the assignment. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to access it because I can't get into GitHub. Just give me a moment. Maybe there's something else I can do. No, unfortunately, I can't get into this. But what I will do is I'll record another video when my power's back up, and I will go over that video as well, and it will be an additional video to this. So for now, I'm just going to be speaking about normal React content. Or actually, you know what I'll do is that somebody did share the assignment, so we will actually look at what actually needs to happen. Okay, so we've got different routes, and we've got different pages. So let's actually look at, very quickly, we're going to look at building out these pages, like super fast. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is React Router. So I'm going to search for React Router. And I want to get the latest one because I believe you are all on the latest one. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to look for how to install it. And no, I don't want to. That's using Vart. I don't want to Vart. Give me a second. Okay, I'm just going to install Reactor Router DOM. That's all. Okay, so split the terminal.
Martin?
Yes.
I have just shared it with you in Discord, if you take a look.
Oh. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Oh yeah, no, sure. No, but there was actually an assignment that someone had problems with, and they wanted me to jump and try and troubleshoot it. But it's one of the it's on the Norif repo, so I can't actually get into my GitHub at the moment. But thanks. No, I'm going to use this now that you've given me. Thanks a lot. Okay, cool. So we're just going to install just React Router on its own. I think it should be fine. I think this match sorter and local forage is for this actual example that they're doing. I don't think we're going to need any of that. Okay, so we've got React Router that's been installed, and we're now going to go and play around with it. Just going to go to the examples. And I guess, yeah, that should be fun. Okay, so going to zoom out a little so that I've just got a bit more space. And before I get started, I just need to go and create some pages. So I'm going to delete this greeting screen. And I'm going to have to get rid of a jar and jar. And what we're going to do now is create a whole bunch of pages. Now, this is going to be an opinionated thing. You shouldn't really have your pages in their own component. You should have it as views or pages. There's one more that I can't remember that you can use. But rather have your pages and your views separated from your actual components. So we're going to have a home page. I'm not going to call it home page. I'm going to call it home. We're going to have a portfolio page. I'm going to call this one about and contact. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go and create the files. index.jsx. So the way you create your component is actually quite simple. You just import React, and in newer versions, you don't even need to import React. But if I was, what I would like for you to all do is to always just do it this way, so you get used to this way of doing it, so that if you work with older code bases, you know how to do it. So you import React from React. There's three parts to this. You import React from React. You create your function, and you return something. So I'm just going to return a div. Just call it home. And then the third step is we export. So export default home. Okay, and that's the three things. So this is step 1, step 2, and step 3. Okay, so it's that simple to like create your stuff. Eventually, when you get good and you know how to do this, you can move on to the React snippets. It's this ES7, this one over here. This ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. You can see that it's 6.1 million downloads. It is really, really helpful. And instead of me doing that, I just do this RFCE, push tab, and done. But I don't want you doing that until you actually know how to actually do this. It will come to you very quickly, like after a lot of practice. Then when eventually you get too tired of doing it, then you can start switching over to the snippets. Okay, so we've got our home components. And I'm actually just going to copy paste this into all of the other components. There's nothing I actually really need to change here. What I'm going to use is a shortcut here, which is called select next find match. Sorry, so it's add selection to next find match. Okay, and what that does is it lets you grab anything that's got the same text. So if I go and I select home here, and I push marquee binding, I use Control R. I can select all three of them, and then I just go contact. Whoops, got to spell it right though. Okay, then we're going to just do the same thing with about. And then we've got portfolio. Okay, cool. There we go. Right. So now we've got our 4 pages, but now we need a way to route them. Now, in normal HTML, if we want to go to another page, we make an anchor link, and we say href is equal to, and let's just say it's this link. Okay. Let's just actually make it /home. And then I need to import this into our main app. So I can just give you an example here. And here's a trick. If you start typing out your component, if your computer's fast enough, it won't really happen if you're like really slow laptop, but it will actually show you where it will import. And if you push tab, it's automatically going to go and import it for you. Sorry, let me show you that again. So I'm going to start typing out my component, and I push tab, and it imports it. But you just have to make sure, though, that you are exporting it from the component. Otherwise, it's not going to let you do that. But if you're exporting it, VS Code is running TypeScript in the background, and it's going to figure all these things out for you. It's going to link them all up, and that's why you're able to do this kind of stuff. Okay, so before we continue with React Router, let's have a look at why we actually are using React Router. So yeah, we've got our home link, and we're using a normal anchor link to link us to the home screen. Now, the problem is that React is a single page application, SPA, okay, single page application. Now, what this means is that when you are loading a page, sorry, just give me a second. So we've got a network request here, and then we're going to load all of this content, right? So I'm just going to refresh the page, and it's going to load all of the stuff here. Now, when you are using a normal, like when you did normal HTML and CSS, every time you went to a new page, it's going to go and load. It's going to load this HTML page. Sorry, it's so big. It's going to load this HTML page every single time you click on a new link. So each time you click on a link, it's going to go and fetch that HTML page and everything else that comes with it. And that is quite a bit slow. So what React does is it only loads this single page once, the HTML page, and then it uses JavaScript. So it uses JavaScript in here to go and update the page. So all of these elements here inside of this div here, this gets changed whenever you're going and altering your code. It doesn't go and load this whole HTML page again. It only goes and uses JavaScript to adjust your code. So that's why it's called a single page application. It only loads that page once, and then it's using JavaScript to modify it. Now, what's happening if you're clicking an anchor link, you are causing the whole thing to reload again. The whole app is now reloading. You've now lost all of the benefits that React brings. You're going to lose your state. You're going to lose your props. You're going to lose everything. So this is why we don't want to link with anchor links. Like if you have a look at this, is all actually it's the whole thing is actually now getting loaded in, and that is not good. We don't want to be doing that in React. So the only time you should be using an anchor link is when you are redirecting to another website outside of your app. Everything else, you actually want to be using React Router. So let's just have a look at that. And I might get the syntax a bit wrong just because I don't work with React Router on a daily basis. I think I'm going to go to the basic example here. You know, web development, it's not about like knowing everything at once. It's knowing how to use things. And then when you look at it again, how you use it. You know, it's about understanding things. Okay, so I'm going to import from React Router DOM, and I'm going to have a link here. So I want a link. So I'm going to push Control Spacebar, and then I get all the options here. I can see what I want to use. You can use Command Spacebar as well, I think. And then, okay, so now if we wanted to link to somewhere, we would use this link property. So this is in the right. I shouldn't be linking a whole component. I don't even know what that's going to do. So if you want to link, you need to go and actually use this link component that you get from React Router DOM. And now what that's going to do, look, I don't actually have a link app, so it's not actually going to go anywhere. Let's try to refresh. So I've lost my console. Give me a second. Everything's so big. Oh, I need to have the actual thing. Okay, sorry. So I'm jumping the gun here. So in order to be able to use React Router, you need to actually have all of this wrapped inside of a component first. Okay, so that's the one thing, is that things need to be wrapped inside of a component. And that is this roots over here. Okay, so I'm gonna have to just add this in. Sort of jumping the gun. I'm trying to teach you linking before roots instead of roots first, which I usually do. Okay, so it's, you have to import this from here, roots. Okay, I'm gonna open. It's not gonna throw an error, and it's just gonna let me see the code. No, okay, sorry. So I was hoping to do it the other way around first. But it's not going to happen. Okay, that's fine. We'll jump back to it in a moment. So let's just talk about roots. I was hoping to show link, but I apologize for that. Know for the future that I can't do it that way. So when it comes to React, and we want to link to different places, let me actually just leave throughout the names out here. So let's just say we've got these links here, portfolio, and we're trying to link to these separate things. What's this problem now? Okay, I'm gonna actually get rid of that. Save. It needs to be in a fragment. Okay, so this is the case here where I'm gonna have to use a fragment because I don't have a div, but I'd still rather recommend just having a div then on the outside. And then you're gonna have your flex container to adjust how this content looks. Okay, but so if we want to link to these separate things, we need to go and use that link component so that it's going to go and load these pages using JavaScript with inside of this page. Okay. Now, for us to link like that, we actually need to set up routing for the actual page. We have to have a way for us to route to these pages. Like, how does React know if I link this to, let me change this to an anchor link, which it shouldn't be, but let's just say if we were to make this an anchor link like this and we said home, how would React know that it needs to be like this? Or if we use the link and we use to, how is it going to know that we're supposed to do this? And the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't know that you're supposed to do it like this. So we need to show it that link is going to exist. And the way we do that is with creating these routes. Okay, so I'm going to show you now how we do that. The first thing is you're gonna have to import an outside component. Okay, so it's this routes, and then inside of this, what do I feel like it needs to be a browser router? Just give me a second. That's how it wasn't working earlier on. I could have used link, and I was just missing the browser router. Okay, so what actually needs to be there is you need to actually have a browser router on the outside, and that is your main wrapper for React Router, and that needs to be like right at the top. So you'll see that they actually do it in the index.js. This over here, this is your main entry point for the app, where it goes and selects the DOM. So let me just quickly touch on that. So here is the main HTML file for your React app, and you must never actually modify this outside of modify the descriptions. But you can see there's an element here, div with an ID of root, and it targets this div to insert its content in here. Like if I was to go and put a whole bunch of garbage there and save it, you'll see that, okay, it used to be that it's, hold on, well, I don't know why it's doing that. Let's get rid of this. Save it. Okay, so when I refresh, you'll see that there's that nonsense there and it disappears. And that is because this is where all of the content's going to get written into. You don't want to be touching this at all. You're never going to be putting an element in here and trying to do like HTML code. It's going to get written over by what React is doing. Okay, so let me move this to the side so I can just sort of touch on this again. Where we got index.js, you can see here that for the root element, it's targeting this element here, this root element. So hold on. So get element by ID, you can see it's here, get element by ID. Okay, so it's actually getting that element like that. And that's where it's able now to go and render the content inside of. I'm gonna have to make fast. I can probably carry on my laptop, but I'm gonna have to move really quick. Okay, so let's actually see if we can like speed run 8-minute React routing. Okay, so I'm going to go and close this all to the right. Okay, so now what we have to have first is a browser router. Okay, and that comes from React Router, and this is your main wrapper. I'm doing it over here in the main app, but you probably want to go and put this in index.js just like they're doing. So you do it over here. You'd wrap it around the app like this. Okay, so now we've got like a main sort of a main component. So hold on, let me get back to this. And now what we can do is we can actually create these roots. We want to have these roots here. Okay, so what we're going to do is first we're going to have, I'm actually get rid of all of this. And I'm going to have a roots component. And that's indicating that this is where the roots start. Because maybe you've got something up here like a header or something, which is not the right way to do it. Let's just say hello world. Hold on, I've got a message. I don't know if it's something important. No, should be good. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it there just so you know that it does stay there. And now inside of this is where we can actually put our roots. Okay, so we're going to have a root. And actually, I think it might even actually just soft close it. I think the syntax has changed. Yeah, okay. So we're going to have this as our root. And we'll call it, we're actually just going to say element is equal to, and then the component we want to use. Okay, and we also need to have a path. Okay, so there's two paths to this. We need to have the path of what page is going to get caught. So, and when I say that, this means that when for example, when I put slash, I know you can't see this, so I'll just write what I wrote there. I'll put it over here. So I put a slash here. So we want React to catch when we hit this root. Then we might want to have one which catches the about root. And then you want to have one that catches the contact root. And so this path here is this path that we've got here. Okay, so we're going to go and make this home. The home component is going to be for our catch all, our sort of our base root. That's where it's just a slash. There's no other path. So we're going to import home from home. And inside of it, we go and put our home component. Okay. Now, yeah, it's obviously going to break when I've got sort of time. So let me see what the issue is. Yeah, I have to zoom out. I can't see what's going on. So
you're importing home twice in the main component. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So root is not defined, and that's because we don't have a root yet. Thanks for that, man. I was going to sit here for ages figuring that one out. Okay, cool. So now we've got that home is getting caught on this root. Now we're going to go and use the next one, which is, let's just say it is about. So you should actually have your main imports at the top and then a space and then your components like this. Okay, so I'm going to import home from pages. I'm actually going to import all of them now. So pages / about, and let's do contact. And also I think it's portfolio. Okay, so now we've got all of our components ready to go. Okay, so this first one we're going to go and we're going to put about. And now think for a second, what do we want this path to be when we go to the about page? What is going to write here? When we type in the URL, where's it going to go? And it would be about. So we wanted that when we go to the about page, or when we want to go to the about, we must find the about component on this root. When we go to this root, we want this component to show. So if I was to manually go and type about and push enter, we've got this about page coming through. So this is the about component. If I just go to this component here and just bring it down, you can see that it's just got about written in it. Okay, so I want to be quite quick. Got 4 minutes left. So now I'm going to go and do the contact page. So I'm going to say contact. And this is when we're going to go to the contact root. Okay, so I'm going to put contact here. And I have to manually type it in, which is not good because this is actually causing the whole page to reload. You never want to be reloading a React page. And then the last one is the portfolio. And let's go and switch it up. So it's going to the portfolio component. Yep, and I'm just going to go to the portfolio and just to test that it's working. And there we go, it's working. Okay, so this is how you create roots. It really is that simple. The main thing is you're first going to have this browser router component that wraps everything. Then when you're going to be doing your routing, you're going to have this roots component, and then your individual roots go inside of that component. Okay, so now let's look at how we can actually link to these components. Link to these roots. So it's really as simple as that we use that link component we used earlier, and we're going to say to, and then you choose the root you want to go to. So I'm going to say about, and then I'll just say about. Okay, so now if I click this button, it's going to go to that about root, and it is blitz fast. It is incredibly fast. Let me actually do the rest of them so you can see. So this should actually be home, and we want it to just be that it goes nowhere. Also, it goes to the root of the page, the root of the site. Then we're going to go to contact. Then we're going to go to portfolio. And then last but not least, we're actually going to go with an anchor link to home. So you can just see the difference here. Okay, so trying to think of a very quick way I could do this. Let's see if this is going to work. It didn't work. Never mind. Oh, that was even a bad one. Okay, so what you can do this to quickly get this done is you actually select all of these, and then you say all R, well, not la, but all R. Select those, Control X, end, paste, save. Bam. Okay, cool. So now, this is now when I'm actually going through the app. I'm actually going and hitting different endpoints, or different pages, and the elements on the page. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So we have to probably drop that one. That. Okay. So now watch that when I'm clicking this, this is changing now. Well, I was meant to do that. Oh, and I lost it. Okay, everybody, I might drop off, and then that will be it for today, but I will have this video up for all of you to see. But when I'm clicking this here, you can see that at the bottom here, this is actually switching. I'm gonna have to stop the recording now, just in case I don't want there to be issues in the recording, and I'll still keep speaking until my power does go off. Okay, so let's just stop recording.